All right. Delaware Camera Conversations with Harry Scull, Buffalo News photographer. Good morning, Mr. Scull.
Morning, how we doing?
Doing very well.
Hello, Harry.
Hello, Marky.
When you go to work, what do? Do you go to the office?
No, I sign on my computer and find out where my assignments are, and then I head to do wherever they are.
So you've been with the news for 25 years, just about,
Yep,
working on it?
yep, 25 years. Yes, I have.
All right. And before that, how long would you have said would you have said that you're a photographer?
Oh, since my sophomore year in college. I went to school at Buff State. I played football my first year there, and always had a camera. And to be frank with you, the high school girlfriend broke up with me, and I had money saved for a ring. And at that point, I took that money and went and bought the top of the line Canon SLR and started moving forward.
It sounds like money well spent and a career built off of that. So
Yes, it has been.
in college, you say you had a camera with you. What's the first camera you remember sort of shooting with? Was somebody in your family that was a photographer that had a camera around? What?
My dad had a basic one of those Brownie pop-on flash things that I used, and then I guess my first, not a professional camera, real camera, was my 110 camera, and that was the camera that I snuck into all the concerts. I wish it was a 35 millimeter format. I still have the negatives, and the Police and Van Halen back in the day, and Ted Nugent, Bob Seger, Def Leppard, Stevie Nicks. I wish some of that stuff was on 35, but I'm sure if I brought it in, Joe would be a wizard and get something good out of it. But my first real camera was in 1985, and I actually found the box today. My grandma bought this for me at Kmart. The sticker's still on there. $239 for a Canon AE1 program with a 50 millimeter lens. And I still have the camera per se. It's right here. Works is good. It's perfect. And I made a lot of pictures and a lot of money with this camera.
That is awesome that you still have that. That's
yeah.
Great. Thank you for sharing. So what's your progression from there? So you've got the AE1 program, you're shooting. Is that in through college? Does that get you? And so
it started me in college, and when the breakup with a girlfriend, then I went and bought the Canon F1.
it's F1. Okay, that was the next question. Is what was the top camera that you went to? So
the F1 was a top camera, and then at that point it was getting rid of the Vivitar lenses. They were nice, but they weren't sharp, and then starting to get more prime lenses. I mean, there were no prime zooms back then. There was a 85 or a 135, or the 50 made a lot of pictures back in the day. Manual focus, 36 exposures. You learn to have a better eye than this generation nowadays, whereas I just shoot it and fix it later. You had to get it right. You had to expose it right in the camera. You had to be sharp in the camera. There were a lot of things that had to be different.
So the next question I want to ask is your transition to digital, and how difficult was that transition? Do you remember it? Was it sort of a smooth transition? How quick were you to adapt?
No, I think the transition was smooth. The transition was smooth. The nice part about the digital versus the film was the fact that you didn't have to walk to an event with 6 bags of film, your 100, your 200, your 400, your 800, 1600, or some black and white. You just change it all in the camera. That is the biggest blessing in my mind about digital. The autofocus is nice, but I was pretty good at manually focusing too, so that wasn't a big deal.
Okay. And so then your progression since then, if you could say, what's one piece of gear that changed the way you shoot the most? It could be a camera, it could be a lens, it could be an accessory, but what's something that you picked up over the years that changed the way you shoot?
I don't know if there's anything I picked up per se. I think just the technology and being able to have a 16 to 35 zoom or a 70 to 200 or a 24 to 70 versus having to have a 24 back in the day or an 85 or a 180. Being able to have that combination just made the job easier because you know, in the Nikon days, you go out with a 17 to 55 and a 70 to what is it, 70 to 210, I believe, and that's all you needed. You'd make every picture you needed. You didn't need anything. So I don't know if there was any real piece. You know, nowadays the cameras are getting so much better. You know, with their sensors and the low light and the ISO. I mean, there's many times I'm out there shooting a sporting event, 20,000 ISO, and nobody knows. You know, that technology has made a big difference.
Yep. Yeah. The higher sensitivity, and that's it took us getting through the quote unquote megapixel races and the
Yes.
megapixel wars. Once we got over that and decided, okay, we have enough resolution. The last 10 years, camera manufacturers going for higher ISO and being able to boost that. That's definitely a big transition. And you just said the transition to digital being not having to carry all those different film stocks.
Yes.
Not only now are you not have to carry the film stocks, now you have a much wider range and you can push up to a much higher ISO.
Oh yeah, and it looks really good. I mean, you remember the early days and seeing the noise in the black, and nowadays it's you know, I don't see it unless I guess maybe you badly underexpose something, but you know, a lot of that high school sports I shoot, you know, at night outdoors is, you know, with a 200 to 400, it's 20,000 ISO and it's 1,000 at 5.6 or 1,000 at 4, and it looks tremendous, tremendous.
Awesome. Yeah, no, it's to me your images are always tack sharp and clean. So
You know, I kind of had two mentors. My landlord, Joe, you know, he was always, you know, Tack Sharp was his thing. And then, you know, my college roommate, Mike Roll, was always fill the frame. So I'm not one of those guys that, if I can, I don't like to leave anything wasted on the frame. You know, it's just, you know, if you got a large pizza, you wouldn't eat two slices and throw it away. And it's the same thing with a sensor. I mean, your images stand out the more you fill the frame. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. Sometimes you can't, but I just, you know, sometimes I lose on that. But I believe in full frame is the way I go.
talk about the newsroom specifically. So you're able to work from home. You sign in, you figure out where your assignments are for the day. Back when you were shooting film, how much has digital changed your workflow?
Well, back in shooting film, we had to go to the office and get our assignments. We couldn't get as many assignments, and a lot of assignments you couldn't stay as long. You couldn't stay at a sporting event as long because you had to come back and process film. The digital just makes everything so much easier. I mean, I go back to my college days when I was, you know, stringing for the AP, and you'd go and shoot the first period at the odd, then run back across the street, process half a dozen rolls of color film, and then have to print one color print, two black and whites, manually type a caption, stick it on the picture, put it on the drum, transmit it, and then go back for the third period. I like sharing that story with the people that just go out and buy digital cameras and they just think it's that easy, you know.
Now, what's your workflow for a sporting event?
Depending on what the game is, you know, with captions being able to be preloaded, um, and the ease of shooting pictures, being able to tag in camera what you like, using Photo Mechanic, bringing your pictures up. Usually at a halftime, you got enough time, or in between a period to send 6 or 8 pictures so that you have something sitting there in the queue just in case, and then seeing what the outcome of the game is, then you can change it up.
Who were you shooting for before you started shooting for the news? What was your progression into?
Well, I worked at Buff State at the Record. I was the editor there for 2 years and a photographer for another 2 years. I worked in the Buff State photo department, and that was just going full time. And they ran out of funding on that, or I'd be 30 years into that job. I was a stringer with the Associated Press and Reuters. I assisted Bill Whippert with the Sabres. Um, you know, and did football and all the AP stuff in Buffalo and a lot of music.
Okay, so music. Do you have a top three that you've shot? Your favorites?
Well, the Rolling Stones would probably be one of them, just because of who they are. I'm a big Christian music fan, so Toby Mac would be another good one. Country wise, Luke Bryan, Brad Paisley, just what they bring, the energy they bring to a show. It's not standing behind a microphone stand and just strumming the guitar. They actually interact with the fans. And I guess, if you'd asked Joe, you'd never been to a Kiss concert that hasn't been exciting.
Awesome. So when I think of your photography, certainly the news, I think of heavily sports. Certainly that's where I see your byline on quite a few images there. So what is sports? So music, you say, it was a passion there, but is sports something
Music's
that
number
drew you
one.
in, and just from
Music
playing?
would,
And
not playing, but photographing music would be my number one favorite thing to do. And then sports would come after. And primarily at this point, it's gotten to be high school sports. The restrictions they give you nowadays at a football game or a hockey game, we don't have basketball here or baseball. Um, in being for 7 years, I was a team photographer for the Jacksonville Jaguars. So I had all access. So it's hard to have all access and then go back, shooting for the news, and you have limited access. So, my thoughts are, if I take what I had with the Jaguars and the all access to the high school football and give them the same touch to it, that, it just looks that much better.
so it was. Did I just see it was this week? You had an interesting spread on covering the athletes that didn't get to do their spring sports.
Yeah, I thought about the project probably about 4 months ago. What would happen if there were no spring sports? So, I reached out to Tim Slade from Section 6 and Pete Snyder from the Monsignor Martin, and I had a paragraph that I was looking for unique stories on senior athletes or coaches that missed out on their season. Unique stories being the thing, not just a run of the mill. And so they submitted it to every athletic director within the schools. And I really only got a small reply, but the ones I got were pretty amazing stories that I had never heard about and was able to share. And, kudos to those athletic directors that sent it to the coaches, and the coaches that, thought it was important enough to, expose their students.
Definitely kudos to you for pushing that story and getting it out there.
And it was just fun because I got to set up times to go do portraits of these people with long lenses and lights and transmitters and receivers, and do some video, and, be able to express it the way I wanted to express it. Not, if school were in session or there were seasons, yeah, you can, you have 10 minutes before practice. I mean, I had an hour to do what I wanted to do. But it just was a blessing just to be around these kids. Some of them I knew, some of them I didn't know. And just seeing what's going through their mind. A lot of these kids, they missed out on the best time of their life.
What's in your bag today when you're going out for a shoot? What's your go-to camera and your core lenses?
Well, I've got the 1DX Mark II. So if it's a hockey game and I'm shooting between the benches, it's a 300-2.8 on one and a 16-35 on the other. If I'm shooting a high school football game, it's a 200-400 and probably a 16-35 on the other one. Just try to keep it simple.
Okay. I'm gonna change up a little bit. So if you're shooting for personal stuff, I'm guessing you're not carrying a 1DX Mark II around with you. But if you're going out visiting family, hanging out somewhere, what's your camera of choice at that point?
I've got a Canon 5D Mark III.
Okay.
I love it. I just love everything about that camera, and that's perfect, and it meets all my needs. I've got several of my own other digital bodies if I need to shoot sports and lenses. I've got a complete separate setup from the news, but yeah, the 5D Mark III with a 24-105, it's all you need.
Awesome. Any thought of mirrorless? Have you looked? Have you played with anything?
No, not until they come out with a professional camera, professional SLR that will take the abuse, the weather and the lenses that, these ones now are nice. They do a great job, but they're not made, for the wear and tear and the banging, that a 1D Mark II is.
I have a question. Are you
Sure.
the official photographer for your group of family and friends, Harry?
Uh, well, I mean, I always have a camera. So let's put it that way. Official, sometimes it's like pulling teeth getting family pictures. I'm not going to lie to you. Like, oh, another one. Like, my one step grandson, Bryce, his family does a book every year. They do a calendar. So when I get to see him, try to shoot as much as I can so that they have the stuff. But it's a lot easier with digital. I mean, I've got boxes and boxes of negatives from, my 28-year-old son that, I don't know how many of them are going to see the light of the day.
Do you know how many negatives you have, like frames of negatives? Any idea?
No, a lot.
I think when I scanned mine, I had like 25,000, and I shot nowhere near what you shot. So
Yeah, there's a lot, and
yeah.
some are organized and some are not organized. Some I know where they are, and some, it's a project for down the road at some point, I guess. But at least at least I finally have put my hockey and my football in separate bins so that I know where to go on that stuff.
Here's one more question. So do you have any pictures that you shot with film, maybe that you've never seen, or have you seen
Oh,
everything you shot?
absolutely. No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
No, absolutely not. I mean, it'd be nice. It'd be fun to go back and look at them. I'm be honest with you. My digital stuff I shoot,
Hmm.
I don't look at all of that.
Yeah.
Just because when we're on assignment, you're on deadline, and you've got the ability to tag the images that you like as you're shooting them. When it
Hmm.
comes time to start the workflow process, I'm just going to the stuff I tagged and trusting it. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff I've never even looked at a whole take. There's just never time.
Do you still have everything though?
I do. I
Okay.
do. Yeah, I do. And that's the process I am now is slowly upgrading to newer hard drives and then backing them up and keeping the old ones just in case.
Hmm.
In case what? I have no idea, but
Well, I
my
think
time's
I
up at
think the
7
picture
o'clock.
I think the picture sitting behind you is a pretty good example of why to not delete anything, because you never know when you're going to have a valuable image like down the
Absolutely.
line.
I agree completely. Yep.
Yeah. So I'm going to poke back onto the image over your shoulder there, an image that you're somewhat infamous for, not just in Western New York, but around the world, kind of.
Yeah, back in 1993, it was the Bills Dolphins, and I was testing out a loaner 500-4.5 from Canon. So I was actually standing over on the Dolphins sideline, waiting for Brian Cox to come out because he was supposed to put on his show. And OJ came walking through the end zone, and I made one frame. That's it, one frame, and I think it might be the first frame. And it just so happens his foot's walking over the white embroidery on the turf, and white is a perfect reflector, and it showed the bottom of the foot perfectly and what kind of shoe it was.
Yep. And so you that image brought you to some court depositions, and right?
Yep, they all came to Buffalo they didn't want I was actually working with the National Enquirer at that time, and they looked at the image, they looked at a lot of images, and it didn't do much for them. And then during the civil trial, they realized it was something. And yeah, we had all the attorneys come to Buffalo, and yeah, it was a 3-ring circus.
About that picture, what did that picture show that affected the trial, so people know?
His right foot is just lifted off the ground,
Hmm.
where you can see the bottom of the shoe, the white turf
Yeah.
at the bottom, so you can clearly see the sole pattern on the bottom, and it perfectly matched the Bruno Magli print that they found
Uh-huh. I feel like some Law and Order music should play right now.
I'm curious from your perspective on the future of photography and the future of the news. Um, you 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 are you've been shooting for the Buffalo News for 25 years. You've been AP, Reuters. You've done a lot of different things, press photography. Um, in the last 10, 15 years, we've seen a lot of changes in those industries. What's
Mhm.
like, do you have a perspective on where it was, where it is now, and where it's going?
Well, it's changing. At some point, it's going to be an all digital format, but I don't think at this point there's only a few media outlets that are very profitable at it. So I think that slowly has to come. I don't know if in my career I will see full digital at the news or not. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I just all I can do is control what I can control and make the images I want, and stay up with the technology. And there's other people that get to worry about that, and just do the best you can. I mean,
Awesome.
it's a great job.
Yeah. Well, you are very good at it, and I can, like, since I've been in the, like, been shooting or been around the scene, I've seen your byline and seen your images. So it's, yeah, you are talented at what you do, and certainly a very good photographer at capturing those images and capturing those, like, the sort of marquee events in Western New York, right? You're on the scene and you're capturing them for you end up being the eyes for a lot of people to see what's happening, be it a cool concert at Darien Lake or a sporting event down to, I love
Oh,
that you are so passionate about high school sports now.
yeah. I mean, you have to give back to the kids. I mean, I have a couple okay pictures that my dad took, but there's nothing better than a parent that has a picture on the wall, or yeah, just those special moments. I just, give them the professional treatment at a high school level. I mean, it's fulfilling, it's humbling, it's a blessing, and I'm grateful for the gift the Lord gave me in photography, and I just want to pass that on to those kids.
Awesome. Harry, thank you for what you do. Thank you for the work that you create. And thank you for joining us this morning.
Anytime, anytime. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Have a good one.